I'm from S-Group, Ilkka Alaratu. I'm responsible about our retail chains and retail business in S-Group. And we are now in Thailand, Bangkok, and meeting Mr. Andy Hall, who has done great work with immigrant rights in Thailand. Our SVP of sourcing, Jari Simolin, now interviews Andy. Please, the stage is yours.
Hi Andy, great to see you again here in Bangkok.
Glad to see you also.
It's 3 years we met here last time, and can you tell me what has happened within pineapple and tuna industry now within these 2-3 years?
We've seen a lot of improvements in some of the bigger factories, some of the main export factories to Europe. So we've seen some improvement in the basic standards for the workers. Things have changed a lot in that. There's still a lot of challenges with the smaller companies and also with migration policies in Thailand. But certainly we've seen more responsibility side by some of the bigger companies in the practices and the labour conditions for the migrant workers.
That's really great to hear, but I'm sure that there's still much work what we and you and especially the Thai manufacturers need to do. What do you think are the main concerns where we should now focus altogether?
I think at the moment some of the problems at the top end, of the supply chain. So for instance, the companies that are still supplying to the S-Group, firstly the issue of recruitment. So we still have a big problem in terms of recruitment fees. So recruitment fees should be covered, in our opinion, in the opinion of Finnwatch also, should be covered by the employers. And still we find migrant workers having to cover a lot of those costs themselves for recruitment. And that includes when they have to go back to their home countries and come in again. The costs are very high, very untransparent, and there's still a lot of corruption amongst government officials and also some of the HR groups, the human resource departments of some of these companies. So the first issue for us is recruitment. We want a zero recruitment fees charged by these companies to the workers. And we want the companies, which are essentially big profitable companies, we want them to shoulder the costs. The second issue which we're focusing on now is, which the Migrant Worker Rights Network and also Finnwatch are focusing on, is the issue of social dialogue. So we now have a project with the Finnish government, which has been greatly, we're really appreciative to the Finnish government for supporting this project, and we're looking at social dialogue within the export industry. So we're trying to empower workers to have a voice in the factory. So we think that the retailers like S-Group and other companies need to be supporting these issues also. So we have a model of a welfare committee within a factory, which is obviously not as powerful or as progressive as a trade union, which is the end goal, but we have welfare committee models in the Thai factories, and we want to be developing social dialogue between the workers and the management, so the workers' life and the workers' work has meaning in their life, that they can learn skills about democracy, about workplace democracy, about social dialogue. So that is the second issue that we really want to work on. And the third issue, again, which is a particular interest to Finnwatch, and we've been learning a lot from Finnwatch and from Sonia, is about the living wage. So we want the workers in the industry to have enough money to be able to survive and to be comfortable. So what we've seen recently is, rightly so, there's been a reduction in the working hours. So before, the workers used to work incredibly long overtime. They didn't have any life. They used to work all day and then they go home, they clean and they eat and then they sleep and then they work. And so now we've seen a significant reduction in the overtime. So according to the BSCI or some of the European standards, they should work overtime no more than 12 hours a week on top of their 48-hour working week. But that has led to a decline in some circumstances when the productivity hasn't increased through bonuses or incentives. It's actually led to a decline in their wages. And that is having a negative impact on their ability to survive also. So we think that S-Group, alongside MWI and Finnwatch, and also the bigger companies in Thailand, should be looking at calculating a living wage and ensuring that the workers can get that. So three issues really. One is recruitment, second is social dialogue, and third is a living wage.
Okay. This living wage is of course, it's very important. I will meet tomorrow and on Tuesday our tuna and pineapple suppliers. What do you feel, is this really the topic and message I should provide them, also them to start to calculate and think about this living wage?
Yeah, I mean, we found that many of the companies in Thailand, they calculate the living wage, but I think they don't do it particularly effectively. But also from talking to the companies themselves, I mean, I'm not an expert on profit margins and things like that, but they feel that in order to have this conversation, they need to have this conversation with their buyers, with the retailers in the West. And so I think that for them to actually start to think about this themselves without a commitment from the buyers or the retailers is incredibly difficult for them. So I think, you could say that this is an issue which S-Group is, and particularly the European consumers, organisations like Finnwatch are really focusing on the living wage. And the S-Group, if this is a policy which you can consider, the S-Group is really willing to look into this issue together with the people who are selling the products to Finland and to S-Group. And I think if you approach it like that, I think the companies would be willing to take part. But the concern for them at the moment is that it would maybe make them uncompetitive or they wouldn't be able to survive. So they need that commitment from their buyers. So.
You and your team, you have done marvelous and great work here in Thailand, and also Sonja Vartiela and her team in Finnwatch also. And Sonja has taught us a lot when it comes to transparency and really working together with NGOs and companies and really how to become much more sustainable company. How you feel has this pineapple case has it raised the also other countries' interest when it comes to the working conditions and sustainability here in Thailand?
I mean, I think firstly we have to say that if we look at Finland, it's something that I think the Finnish government and also the Finnish people, organisations like Finnwatch and groups like S-Group can be really proud of. The fact that people are so interested in these kind of issues. This is something which is really amazing for me to see when I travelled to Finland, also in Norway or Sweden. There's a real interest in these sustainability issues which we don't see in other parts of the world, even in my own native England. So I think that that's something that is great. I certainly think that if we look at the US, for instance, it's really difficult to get any traction on these issues from the general public. So I think that's something in Finland which is specific. But certainly, the natural fruit case and what has happened because of that case has really managed to bring attention to many audiences about the conditions of migrant workers, because they can relate much more easily to me as a foreigner who's doing research in a country like this. So certainly I always like to think of this case as like every dark cloud has a silver lining, and I think the positive thing to come of the prosecutions against me is the fact that it's raised a lot of interest and a lot of attention to the conditions of migrant workers. And I think it's also made a lot of companies more aware that they can't go after human rights defenders or activists or researchers because it will have a very negative impact on their business. So I think that it has some positives.
How you feel that when we, a consumer cooperative in Finland, S-Group, we would become much better even in sustainability cases? That's very important for our customer owners. How you feel that what should be our actions in going to the next stage, next level in our sustainability work?
I think what is important for us in terms of the labour conditions, if we talk about labour conditions, not other issues. Firstly, we see a very important role for audits, to give a voice to workers in an area of the world, in Thailand, where there is almost no social dialogue, or there's very little social dialogue. There's very little organisation of workers, particularly in the industries that you're sourcing from. So the audits can be a very powerful way to get workers' voice. So I think that what's important is to ensure that audits are effective. So we're looking at models like SA8000, the SMETA or the SEDEX audits, BSCI. These are starting to advance. So when you have audits, also to have off-site audits, something that's very important. So we do see the role of audits, and I'm sure Finnwatch also sees the role of audits, but we want to make those more effective. So we would encourage S-Group to have more effective auditing processes. But on its own, audits are just not sufficient, even the SA8000 audits. So these need to exist alongside an engagement with civil society or unions on the ground. So effectively, as part of a tripartite dialogue, your engagement needs to be with trade unions, who are empowering workers or organising workers to have a social dialogue. But in conditions like in Thailand, it's very difficult to work with the trade union system. So where the trade unions are not existing or where they're not in a position to protect workers, it's important to work with civil society. So we always believe that for groups like S-Group and for companies that are buying from Thailand, firstly make the audits more effective, but secondly engage the civil society, because without an effective, sustainable civil society, without organisations assisting migrant workers in conditions like in Thailand, it's very difficult to bring sustainable change. So we would encourage S-Group both to make your audits more effective, but also to work more intensively with civil society organisations on the ground, so they can get information. So you can get more information about the real conditions in the factories, but also so that these organisations can work to empower workers in the factories also, and to help them to have more voice and to enable more social dialogue.
I have heard that you have a very good project ongoing with Thai Union in tuna industry. Can you tell me something more about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working with Thai Union. Essentially, we have to thank Finnwatch for this and Sonia and her team for this, because Thai Union was one of the main factories we focused on in that research many years ago, and ever since then we've been building a relationship with them. So we saw that they stopped using subcontract agencies, or they started covering more costs of recruitment. That was something that started earlier on, and they've become a lot more aware of the need to engage civil society and also issues of social dialogue. So at the end of last year, we agreed to do a project together, a 3-stage project on empowering workers in the factories. So we have access now to their 5 main export factories. So we have full access to all documents, all workers, to map the conditions and to highlight to Thai Union management any challenges. And then we're also, as a second stage, we're developing a curriculum for workers to ensure that they have more educational knowledge on issues that are perhaps a weakness within the company. And as a third stage, we're engaging in a social dialogue project to try to develop social dialogue between Thai Union management and the workers, to try to organise the workers or empower them to have more effective complaint mechanisms, more effective voice in the workplace. So we're working with Thai Union on that 3-stage project. We started in January, and already we've mapped one of their main facilities just a few weeks ago, and already we've started working on a test project for almost 200 workers who are going back to Myanmar and coming in with 0 recruitment fees. And we're also, during the next few weeks, there'll be a major welfare committee election in Thai Union's main facility in Mahachai. So my team are working very closely, the MWRN team are working very closely with Thai Union to ensure that election process is really democratic, that workers are involved, workers understand the benefits of social dialogue, and that we have a very strong welfare committee in place in Thai Union which can really take social dialogue with the company to the next level. So we're really proud of that engagement that we had with them.
Okay, that's great to hear. Have you seen the other companies following your project with Thai Union, the other exporters? Are they following as well?
No, not really. I mean, we've had, as I say, we continue to have very real challenges in working with any of the main export companies in Thailand. There's very little appetite to work with civil society. Civil society is still seen as something that's very negative and is seen as a threat. And we've seen very little transparency from the other companies. There are exceptions. For instance, one big pineapple company, they invited me, that was Psycho. They invited me to their facilities to look. We've now just had an invitation from Chalerm Pokapan's Food to go into their facilities. Also, MWRN is starting to work now with Chotiwat in the south, so we've seen a lot of transparency from those companies, but really it's just a handful. I mean, I can only count 4 companies. The general attitude in Thailand is not like that. So we're really hoping that through this Thai Union project, we will be able to reach out to other companies, because I think the problem for us is very much, with the exception of the Thai Tuna Industry Association, which is quite a strong association, and we've been involved in them a lot. We see the other associations, for instance the Thai Food Processing Association, the Thai Frozen Food Association, as still being particularly weak in being able to bring together the industries for change. And we saw that in the Good Labour Practices project of the ILO, that the industry as a whole is incredibly weak and very competitive, and they don't look at the long term for the whole industry. So we're hoping that by working with Thai Union as an industry leader, we can push forward the whole industry. But it's not our choice. I mean, we'd prefer to be working with the whole industry, not just one company. But the conditions in Thailand mean that we've had to just focus on individual companies because the industry is not ready. And that may be something to do with the relative size of the different companies within the industry, which means they all don't have the ability or resources to do that. So
it's very fascinating to hear how concrete work you and also Finnwatch is doing to improve the working and labor conditions. You have been to court several times in natural fruit case. Can you update me with the situation? What is the current situation with this?
Well, I mean, the company has shown itself to be completely irrational ever since the beginning, and of course they're continuing. So I mean, one of the cases against me for an Al Jazeera interview, a criminal case, has been dismissed twice, and now the company and also the Attorney General have appealed that to the Supreme Court. So we're very disappointed in that. And in terms of the main criminal case, that will be, I was indicted back last year, and in January I handed myself over. I was detained and then released on bail, but my passport was taken, and also I'm prevented from leaving the country without permission of the court. So that is the main case, and the trial of that will start in May. So, and there's also 2 civil cases for, I think it's about 8 or 10 million euros that are still ongoing. So yeah, the company is just continuing in the way it always has done. They're not backing down, and we don't seem to be able to get any traction from the Thai government. We've seen some very strange phone calls from the Ministry of Justice requesting that I back down or that I negotiate with the company, which is very strange to be hearing that from the Ministry of Justice. We've seen a lot of action from, for instance, the European Union has been very vocal and supportive. The Finnish government has been incredibly impressive. I think they've always been one of the most strongest of all the people supporting this, and also the UK government is increasingly voicing its opinion. But I think actually in the next couple of months, unfortunately, we're probably going to have to launch a series of counter prosecutions against the company and against those officials that have been involved in prosecuting me. But that's not from a vengeance point of view or an anger point of view, but simply to assert my rights under law.
Yeah.
To be able to say that this is not acceptable harassment, it's not acceptable behaviour and it's harassment. But yeah, things are still moving on very much, you know.
Is there anything S-Group can do to support you in your court case?
Well, today I got the very good news from S-Group also that you're willing to be one of the key witnesses in my case. S-Group is a company which, ever since the beginning, through your supply chain, through Refresco, you were obviously purchasing the pineapple juice that came from natural fruit. And we saw, very much in line with Finnwatch's approach, that nobody requested that people stop buying from natural fruit. We just wanted things to improve, and we wanted there to be audits. And I think, given credit both to yourself, to S-Group, and also to Finnwatch, you did come over very soon and you went to the company and you said, you know, these have been allegations that have been made. In order to keep purchasing from this company, you need to have audits, third-party audits, to verify that things are improved. And we know that natural fruit refused. And I think that the behaviour by natural fruit is something that we really need to highlight in the trial. That this is unacceptable conduct, and this is the reason why natural fruit lost their customers. And so, you know, in order to prove that issue in court, we need the S-Group to be able to come and to stand up and to say that. So today we're delighted to hear that you're willing to do that, and yourself is willing to be one of those key witnesses in the trial. So I think beyond that, just to send a message to the Thai government that these kind of things are unacceptable, and that the Thai government has the responsibility to ensure that its laws are not being abused in this way. That's something that to continue saying to the government, and to be also saying to the industry that this is not acceptable behaviour, and to stand up publicly and to say that you're against these cases and that you support the work of myself, MWRN, and also Finnwatch. So obviously we would like you to continue doing that, but the fact that you're willing to be a witness is already so much support for the case, so we're really grateful for that.
Thank you. It's good, and we want to support you, of course, that then you can focus in the great work what you do. Thanks, Andy. It was very nice to talk with you, and thanks for all the great work you have been doing also for us in supporting in our focuses in our work in improving the working conditions in supply chain. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you.